Hey everybody, if you found this video useful or interesting in any way, please give me a like and subscribe. That would help out a lot for the growth of this channel, and it'll let me know that I'm doing something that you enjoy. All right? See ya. Well, most sports are about to be full-time off-season as we approach the summer. We are at the beginning of May here, and the question to most athletes and even coaches would be how to structure your training throughout this time period. What is the best type of training to get ready for the upcoming season? And lo and behold, I don't have a sexy answer for you. I know, it's crazy. What do you mean? I thought I have to do XYZ training because I saw some pro athlete do it. In the off season, I need to be doing boxing and jogging around some crazy fucking I don't know, whatever it is, man. Balance training, all that stuff. What is actually good training? What does it look like? How do strength coaches in the real world apply year-round training? And the reality is that any coach that's worth their salt is going to be training you somewhat similarly to how they would year-round. Why? Okay, this is the big one. Everybody has their opinion, but why would we do that? So if we look at training, so if we're doing weight training, if we're trying to increase speed and we're trying to increase our explosive ability, whatever it is, right? We want to have those similar qualities trained throughout the year in different doses and different capacities as we go. Okay. So for me, when I was working with our college basketball players, we would often, be squatting throughout the year. We'd be doing our trap bar deadlifts throughout the year, all that good stuff. And when we were early in the off season, we would do variations of those same types of exercises. So the point would be to, one, maintain our base of strength that we already were able to achieve throughout our athletic careers, so that we had the ability to produce force and we could build off of that as the successive seasons would go on. And then two would be to get better at some of those movements so that, again, ultimately we would be able to produce more force more rapidly, to have that rate of force development, which is our ability to, again, produce force very quickly. So when we think of like power and our explosive ability, all of that, it's going to relate to some of this stuff. So if, let's say, we do a lot of back squatting in the season or front squatting, whatever it is, pick your poison, it doesn't really matter. You can choose what you want to choose based on your own personal goals and your limitations and your accessibility to equipment and all of that stuff, right? We could focus on those same movements early on in the year, and add a little bit of tempo, add a little bit more range of motion where we actually kind of stress some of those positions without having the demands of the sport thrown on top of our ability to train. Some of the tempo work too, it does a great job with teaching some of that coordination and getting into those positions. There's some information that's gone back and forth as far as tendon health with tempo training. Ultimately, I think a lot of that stuff has to do, again, with exposure and how much we're exposing athletes to different stimuli throughout the year. So if you want to get stronger, all right, so let's just pick strength as an example. If you want to get stronger, pick an exercise, maybe focus a little bit more on your range of motion early on in the year. Be progressive with your volume of training, so don't jump right into the deep end and do as much volume as possible. Start off on something that you can tolerate to where you're not feeling dead every day, and work to a reasonable intensity. So this could be something like up to about 70% intensity early on, like as you're getting off the season and you want to have a little bit of recovery. You might start a little bit lower, and then you have that progression you build up as the year goes. Okay, that would be a way that you do that. And of course, intensity and volume as this inverse relationship. As we increase intensity, we want to reduce some of the volume as the year goes by so that we aren't having so much stress that we completely break down. And as you go throughout your off season, you should be getting more stimulus that's more specified to what the sport is going to demand from you. Okay. So that would be an example of how to increase some of the strength stuff. So for speed and power and like your ability to jump higher, all of that, right? Again, you can do the same stuff that you would in season or like right into preseason. So sprinting, we can think of how to progress our sprints, right? The most demanding form of sprinting is going to be something that is max velocity. Okay. So in order to achieve max velocity, we're going to be on a flat surface, and we may have a distance of, let's just say, about 60 meters, where we can achieve that maximum velocity. That is going to be the most demanding on your body. Okay. You're going to have the most eccentric forces actually being imposed on your legs. You're going to have higher contraction rates. You're going to have high ground reaction force, right? There's all of this stuff that's going to be happening when we're sprinting at max velocity. So if we want to break that down, we can work at sprints in components. So we can do something like a hill sprint, to where we're more in an accelerated type position. We are not able to achieve max velocity because we're actually at an incline gradient there, right? We have a little bit lower overall stress that's happening from like a ground reaction force standpoint. So, and the distance can actually be shorter too. We can think of this as like a 10 to 20 meter type of uphill sprint. And then progressively we get, lower. We're working on our accelerations on a flat surface. We're working on some of our cutting ability, potentially our change of direction, so that we're getting some stimulus, again, in very short distances, where we're having some acceleration and deceleration and change of direction there. And again, we're progressing this and progressing this and progressing this and having more and more stimulus as we go. But, from a standpoint of the sport, when you're in the sport, you're going to be having really, really high physical demands from acceleration, deceleration, some of your jumping ability. Again, we're talking about basketball, some of your breakaway sprinting, but you also aren't likely going to be maxing out from a stimulus standpoint in your sport. So you may have had some of your capability to withstand some of those forces diminish as the season went by. So now we want to kind of rebuild that base so that we have a larger pool to work from, where we can grab some of those resources needed physically to achieve really, really high physical performance when we get to our sport. Okay. So those are some examples of how we can think of how we would train more effectively in the off season and transition that and go along into our preseason and then our in-season work. And if you guys want some more specific details, if you want me to break down something a little bit more or explain it a little bit more, please leave a comment and I will do that.